Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtataras Dashi Srimati Divine Grace Abhay Chanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki Jai Jai Nithai Gaur Premanande Hare Go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, Chapter number 9, entitled Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy, text number 32. Yadatu sarva bhuteshu Yadatu sarva bhuteshu Darushvagnim ivastitam Darushvagnim ivastitam Patichakshitamam loko Patichakshitamam loko Jayatharyeva kashmalam Jayatharyeva kashmalam Yadatu sarva bhuteshu Darushvagnimivastitam Patichakshitamam loko Jayatharyeva kashmalam Yadatu sarva bhuteshu Darushvagnim ivastitam Patichakshitamam loko Jayatharyeva kashmalam Yadatu sarva bhuteshu Yadharyeva kashmalam Yadatu sarva bhuteshu Darushvagnimittivastitam Patichakshitamam loko Jayatyeva kashmalam Yadatu sarva bhuteshu Darushvagnimivastitam Patichakshitamam loko Jayatharyeva kashmalam. Mataji's. Okay. Shri Radha Radha sarva bhuteshu Yadashve agni vivastitam Patichakshitamam loko Jayatharyeva kashmalam. Word for word. Yada, when, to, but, sarva, all, bhuteshu, in the living entities, dharushu, in the wood, agnim, fire, iva, like Stitam, situated, Patichakshita, you shall see, Mam, me, Lokaha, and the universe, Jhayat, can give up, Tarhi, then at once, Eva, certainly, Kashmalam, illusion. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Chanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: you will see me in all living entities as well as all over the universe, just as fire is situated in wood. Only in that state of transcendental vision will you be able to be free from all kinds of illusion. Please repeat after me. You will see me in all living entities as well as all over the universe, just as fire is situated in wood. Only in that state of transcendental vision will you be able to be free from all kinds of illusion. Purport: Brahma prayed that he might not forget his eternal relationship with the Lord during the course of his material activities. In answer to that prayer, the Lord said that he should not think of existing without a relationship with his omnipotency. The example is given of the fire in wood. The fire kindled in wood is always the same, although the wood may be of different types. Similarly, the bodies within the material creation may be specifically different according to shape and quality, but the spirit souls within them are not different from one another. The quality of fire, warmth, is same everywhere, and the spiritual spark or part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit is the same in every living being. Thus, the potency of the Lord is distributed all over His creation. This transcendental knowledge alone can save one from the contamination of material illusion. Since the Lord's potency is distributed everywhere, a pure soul or devotee of the Lord can see everything in relationship with the Lord, and therefore he has no affection for the outer coverings. That pure spiritual conception makes him immune to all contamination of material association. The pure devotee never forgets the touch of the Lord in all circumstances. Translation again. You will see me in all living entities as well as all over the universe, just as fire is situated in wood. Only in that state of transcendental vision will you be able to be free from all kinds of illusion. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karati vachalam bhungam langayati grim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurun Tirtharanam Paraman Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Vishnu. Hare Krishna. Okay, so this section of Bhagavatam is the Lord's conversation with Lord Brahma. So in other words, his reciprocation or his acknowledgement of Lord Brahma's prayers. So Lord Brahma's initial primary reason for praying was that he wanted to perform the act of creation for the pleasure of Krishna. But at the same time, he did not want to become contaminated by material consciousness and become proud, thinking that he's the one who's doing it. Rather, he wanted to always remain the servant or the instrument of the Lord. So he always wanted to remain in that consciousness. So he offered his prayers to that extent, glorifying the Lord. Now, what's happening here is that after he's offered his prayers, the Supreme Personality of Godhead reciprocates with him. we may think Krishna is just speaking and Brahma is just hearing, but these instructions of Lord Krishna to Lord Brahma is quite significant, because Krishna is giving the instructions to Lord Brahma according to his adhikar. So Krishna gives instruction according to the qualification of the recipient. And Krishna is no ordinary living entity. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is known as Sad Aishwarya Purna. He is full in all 6 opulences. And his body is made of Satchit Ananda, that is eternality, knowledge and bliss. And Krishna is not, as he mentions in Bhagavad Gita, Avajananti Mamudha, Manushim Tanumashitha, Parambhavam Ajanato, Mama Bhuta Maheshwaram. I think that's the last line. You also forgotten. Okay. So in this verse, Krishna is mentioning that those who consider him to be an ordinary living entity, someone who's just got a material body, they're considered to be fools. They're considered to be fools because they deride him, not understanding that his body is divyam or transcendental. So there's no difference between Krishna and his body. But the problem is that within our contaminated consciousness or our limited vision, because we are situated in the body, we have this distinction between us and the body. At least when we come to the platform of transcendental knowledge. At this point in time, in the contaminated consciousness, we think we are the body. And thinking we are the body, we consider Krishna also to be the body. In one sense that's true, but we consider him to be of a material caliber, or a material nature, his body. So in other words, we consider him to be just like one of us. And this is a big problem when we try to understand that which is beyond our limited perception. So when something is inconceivable and we try to understand with our limited senses, we'll always come to a wrong conclusion. Because it is very difficult for the child to be able to find out his father unless the mother tells him. It's very difficult. Once I asked Jayapataka Maharaj, because I remember reading this in, I think it was Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, or Life Comes from Life. And when I read this section, then I thought, but yeah, that's what Prabhupada's saying, but what about DNA testing, you know? You can find out by DNA testing. So I went and told, at that time Jayapataka Maharaj had graced us with 1 month of his association, which is very rare. So then Maharaj was here and he was holding classes in his hotel every night. So I happened to go there and take darshan of Maharaj, and I asked Maharaj a couple of questions, and one of the questions I asked was about this, Prabhupada saying like this, that you cannot find the father unless you get the mercy of the mother, mother tells. And Jayapataka Maharaj said yes. I said, but what about DNA testing? And Maharaj said, well, are you going to go test the whole world? By the time you test one group of people, the next batch you were supposed to test would have died. And so if you keep going on, you probably wouldn't get a chance to test the whole world. So, in very rare cases, if Krishna wants, the living entity may come to Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prabhadyante. By this speculative process, one may. Of course, Bhaktya Mama Bijanati. Krishna is not known without one performing devotional service. So you can even say there, the mercy of Krishna to such a speculator is that Bahunam Janmanamante Jnanavan, that Jnanavan, the one with knowledge, is able to understand Vasudeva Sarvamiti simply by the mercy of a devotee. Because being stuck in material existence means that you're stuck. You're bound up by the modes of nature, you're bound up by ropes of the modes of nature. So Prabhupada often says, the bound cannot save the bound. Right? One who's bound up cannot free another person who's bound up. So who can be freed, or who is the one that can free the others? Those who are unbound. So Krishna is the original unbound. He is completely aloof from material nature. In fact, he is the controller. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. That under his guidance, under his supervision, Maya is acting. So Krishna is able to do that. And then Krishna sends his associates to go further, convince the living entities to come back to him. So in that sense, Krishna is the one who gives the mercy, either directly in his manifest form, direct association, or through his devotees, the Shakti-Vesh avatars. So Krishna here, he is beyond the senses, he is of a different caliber, and he's giving instructions to Lord Brahma. And his instructions to Lord Brahma should not be neglected, or it should not be seen as something cheap. It should be taken to heart very seriously. Because you can see here, Krishna is now giving the instructions. Krishna is giving instructions to Lord Brahma so that he can perform his activities and remain Krishna conscious. Rupa Goswami has mentioned that to always remember Krishna and to never forget Krishna. These two things are the sum and substance of all instructions of the Vedas. These simple two instructions, always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. If we're able to remember these two things, which is practically the same instruction, then we'll able to satisfy all conditions of all other instructions in the Vedas. I'm trying to remember the Sanskrit. Do you remember how it starts? It's Na jatu chit. Sarve vedi nishedeshur etiyore vakinkara. That's the last two lines. Smartavyo satatam Vishnu. Was it? Smartavyo satatam Vishnu. Vishmartavyo na jatu chit. Yeah. Sarva vede nishedeshur etayor evakinkara. So all other instructions are subordinate to these two things. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So this is a very important section of Srimad Bhagavatam, because it's allowing us to see how is it that our Sampradaya Acharya, Lord Brahma, because we are in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So our Sampradaya is originated from Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma is performing his activities as an Acharya. Like Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya. Acharya is one who sets standards by example. So Lord Brahma is performing his activities of universal creation without being bewildered, because he is following the instructions of Lord Krishna. And what are those instructions? Srimad Bhagavatam is very merciful enough to give us those instructions as well. Just like Bhagavad Gita was instructions from Lord Krishna to Arjuna, but it was for the benefit of all mankind. In the same way, Srimad Bhagavatam is allowing us access to the same instructions, which allows us to be able to be freed from the struggles of material existence. So here, Prabhupada's mentioning in the previous verse, these two verses, 31 and 32, are very important, because they talk about a very similar group of verses mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagadavaktamurtina matstani sarva bhutani nachaham teshvavastitaha nachamatstani bhutani yoga paschame yogamaishwaram bhutabrin nacha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavana. That Krishna is mentioning to Arjuna. This section of Bhagavad Gita is very interesting, because Krishna is trying to stimulate devotion by explaining his glories, explaining his potency, his omnipotence. That he's telling Arjuna that, just see, everything is resting within me and I am within it. But at the same time, Krishna is saying that he's not within it. At the same time, Krishna is in one sense contradicting himself. But Krishna is specifically mentioning this to Arjuna, because he's telling Arjuna that actually everything exists simply by my potency. It exists because of my desire. But although it's existing by my desire, in one sense someone will complain, or someone will question that actually if it's existing by your desire, you should be contaminated as well. You should be affected by it as well. Krishna is saying, no, actually everything's running by my potency. Although I am there, I am not there at the same time. Goloka eva nivasati akilatma bhuto andantarastam paramanu chayantarastam. These two verses of Brahma Samhita, Krishna is mentioning there that he is present, andantarastam paramanu chayantarastam, that he is present within every atom. But at the same time, Goloka eva nivasati akilatma bhuto, that akilatma bhuto, the Atma of the universe, the super soul, is existing in Goloka Vrindavan. Goloka eva nivasati. He's existing in Goloka Vrindavan. So we can understand from very simple point that Vedanti tat tattva vidis tattvam yad jnanam advayam. That the Supreme Absolute Truth is known in three aspects. Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti sabdyate. So this aspect Krishna is bringing out is of his Brahman and Paramatma potencies, or aspects rather. That Brahman, he's all-pervading, everything rests in him. But Paramatma aspect, that he's within everything. But then Krishna then finally mentions that actually I am not within them, and they are not within me, in the sense that everything is resting on his potency as the Bhagavan aspect. So it's a very interesting section of Bhagavad Gita, or a couple of verses, and you see that being repeated here. This is yesterday's verse, text 31. O Brahma, when you are absorbed in devotional service, in the course of your creative activities, you will see me in you and throughout the universe. And you will see that you yourself, the universe, and the living entities are all in me. So it may raise doubts that if Krishna is saying this, does that mean we are Krishna and Krishna is us? Because if we are in Krishna and Krishna is in us, then we may get the very self-gratifying, the most exalted material, or pleasures of all material pleasures, that I am Krishna. But actually that's not what Krishna is mentioning here. You'll see me in you as the Paramatma, and you'll see that yourself and the universe are in me, in the sense that we are all potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The living entity is the marginal potency, and the material nature is the external potency of the Lord. So this is a very philosophical section to be able to understand. But Krishna has mentioned already, he's already warned us that try to stay awake. O Brahma, situate yourself in penance and meditation and follow the principles of knowledge to receive my favor. By these actions you will be able to understand everything from within your heart. So you can understand this. Krishna is already preparing us. Through tapa and vidya, you will get mad ashrayam, his shelter. From tapa, penance, and with knowledge, you'll get the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, unless, as Prabhupada mentions, tadvidi paripatena pariprashnena sevaya. There's that story of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. How once one very famous scholar came to visit him. And this famous person came to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and wanted to ask him some questions. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that I'm busy now, come back later. Meanwhile, my disciples, they'll be able to help you. And so the disciples then took this scholar, this famous person, and engaged him in devotional service. And while he was engaged in devotional service, then he came back to the Goswami Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, then answered his questions. And so he was asking the Thakur, why is it that you didn't, I came before? And it's mentioned here in this example that tadvidi panipatena pariprashnena sevaya. That before one is able to put forward questions and get the answer, one must perform some amount of devotional service. One must serve, because that will bring one into the proper state of consciousness to receive instructions from the spiritual master. Because can you imagine, you go up to, which is our current state of affairs, you go up to someone and just ask them a question, very offhandedly, why are you wearing your jumper like that? Kind of like that, And you may get the response, I'm feeling hot. But then if it's offhanded and the person, there's some arrogance and some pride there, then why do you have to wear it like that? That sort of rebuttal comes. You're not able to receive the knowledge as it is. You still have the doubt within the consciousness. And with that false ego, it's very difficult to accept instructions and to carry them out. Very, very difficult. Because then one considers that the instruction has come, okay, then I can manipulate it, I can use my speculative potency to be able to adjust it to my situation, because of course, the instruction that comes is not really for me, it's just a principle, so I can adjust it, and Yukta Vairagya Prabhu and Mataji, just deal with it that way. But actually that's not how it works. How it works is that we simply take it as it is and we enact the instruction. And that can happen only by a proper mood of surrender and service to the spiritual master. Tadvidi panipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So Krishna is telling, very simply, situate yourself in penance and meditation. Think of this, Brahma's already spent one full lifetime doing that already. 100 years of his lifetime. He appeared, didn't know what to do, heard the waves against the lotus stem, tapa, okay, I'm sitting on top of a lotus stem, a lotus flower, okay, I'll just sit down and meditate. 100 years, whole lifetime disappeared. Prabhupada says in his Nectar Devotion classes, if one simply has enthusiasm and patience, one will advance in Krishna consciousness. There's no question of falling down if one has enthusiasm and patience in Krishna consciousness. Utsaha nischayat dharyat. There's no question of falling down if you satisfy these criteria. Because one who's enthusiastic will continue to perform devotional service on and on and on. And one who's patient will not be disturbed by any obstacles or lack of reciprocation from the Lord. Bhava Vibhushan Prabhu was mentioning recently that Maharaj, I think it was Bhavapu or it was Ishwaresh Prabhu, I can't remember, that I think it was Bhavapu. Maharaj Prataparudra, he's a pure devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu neglected the king. He did not want to see the king. Although he was performing such pure devotional service that pleased Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu internally, externally Mahaprabhu did not give him any reciprocation whatsoever. But it's mentioned that actually the way Mahaprabhu was working, he was stacking up. He was stacking up the reciprocation so that it would just be given to Maharaj Prataparudra in one go, and Maharaj Prataparudra will be just completely satisfied by it. Completely satisfied. So we do not know how the Supreme Personality Godhead will operate. He's beyond our senses. But enthusiasm and patience is required. So this is Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is going to be, you can see, he's in enthusiasm and patience. He's seen the Supreme Personality Godhead, and now he'll engage another 100 years in meditation and penance, and trying to cultivate that knowledge the Lord has given from within the heart, to perform his duties of creation, and then to, in one sense, he's going to be there to oversee creation, because the demigods will come to him eventually, again and again and again. That, you know, the demons have come, we can't perform our duties. So then Lord Brahma will then take them to Lord Vishnu again and again and again. So then, in that sense, you can understand Lord Brahma's position. And we see that in his abode, Lord Brahma is always hearing the glorification of the Supreme Personality Godhead, to the extent that once Kakudmi, I think is the father-in-law of Lord Balaram, the father of Revati. Kakudmi, right? I believe it's Kakudmi. And so he went to Lord Brahma, Brahma Loka. He was thinking that my daughter, I can't find a proper suitor in this current age, current situation in my kingdom. So let me go to Lord Brahma and ask him who I can give my daughter to. So he went to Brahma Loka. At that time, Lord Brahma was situated in a performance, a Vedic. He was in his assembly, seeing some performances. And Kakudmi waited. And it's mentioned that Lord Brahma came a couple of moments later and asked Kakudmi what he could do. And so Kakudmi told me, I want to marry my daughter to a very suitable husband. And so then Lord Brahma started laughing at him. Lord Brahma, and then Kakudmi is thinking, well, I waited all this time and you just still laugh at me. And so Brahma says that actually you're a couple of moments waiting here. Your whole family and dynasty has come and gone many, many times. So many yugas have come and gone. You won't be able to recognize anything when you go back. But then he gives him the benediction that Lord Balaram, you go now is the proper time. So you can understand that Kakudmi had gone sometime during Lord Brahma's lunchtime. And so then at that time, then Lord Brahma told Kakudmi that, my dear Maharaj, if you go down to your the Earth planetary system now, Bhuloka, then the Supreme Personality God, his Lord Balaram is performing his pastimes, you can marry your daughter to him. And it's mentioned that when when he went before Balaram and offered his daughter, Lord Balaram had to get his plow to pull her down to size. Because they were of a different yuga. She was of a different yuga. Anyway, so Lord Brahma is always situated in penance, tapasya, and hearing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it begins with this, Krishna's instructions to him. Now in this verse, this purport, Prabhupada is saying that in answer to Brahma's prayer, specific prayer, that he did not want to forget his eternal relationship with the Lord while performing his activities. Look again, Brahma is performing his role as Acharya. Because we also should understand the difficult position we're in. It's so easy to forget anything. Sometimes there's that example of, people who wear glasses looking for glasses but having it on their head anyway. It's so easy to forget something in this age of Kali. Manda sumanda matayo manda bhagyo hi ubhadritaha. That we are so unfortunate living entities in Kali Yuga. Actually, self-realization is not meant for Kali Yuga, but Mahaprabhu's mercy that is empowering us to perform some devotional service, to have some sort of realization of the self. So Lord Brahma is praying that when I perform my service, please let me not forget my eternal relationship with you. And what is Krishna saying to him? That he should not think of existing without relationship with his omnipotency. So in other words, he should not forget that he is existing simply by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By the Lord's potency, everything is being performed, and that he's simply an instrument. He is simply an instrument. So whether he does it or not, it will happen. But Krishna chooses Brahma to be the instrument, and Brahma should remember that he is not an indispensable personality within this universe. Because we hear that when there's not a suitable person to take the role of Lord Brahma, Krishna himself will assume that position. So another thing to keep in mind. Sometimes when we perform devotional service, we get pride comes to our head, and we think that no one else can perform devotional service like this. Without me, nothing can happen. Then we unfortunately stamp our authority everywhere and anywhere. And it causes a disruption to the service. But what's quite interesting is that even though a person may leave their service like that, the service does not discontinue. There will always be someone to come and take it up. Take for example Srila Prabhupada. Priti viche yache yare Priti viche yache. I keep getting mixed up. Priti viche. Does anyone remember the next word? Priti viche yadi nagaradi gram sarvatra prachara hoibe moranam. So this is a very simple prophecy, I guess, given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that in every town and village his name will be heard and sung, chanted. But Prabhupada's godbrothers thought that it was just some metaphor, some very allegorical or some very sweet metaphor that Mahaprabhu was mentioning. But Srila Prabhupada took it to heart and enacted that instruction. You can see for such a long time there was a gap where no one was taking up that service. In fact, one time Prabhupada was telling his disciples that, or one of his disciples asked Srila Prabhupada, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was such a powerful acharya that he was in India and he was able to uproot upper sampradaya and spread Krishna consciousness along with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So why didn't he go and preach it all over the world? And Prabhupada said, because he left it for me to do. Because he wanted to give the credit to me. So Prabhupada, he took up that instruction and he carried it out. But prior to that, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had sent his disciples to England. And when he had sent his sannyasi disciples to England, they went there and they were preaching Krishna consciousness, and the people told them that no one's going to accept your Krishna consciousness. You're going to have to adapt to the situation. So they tried, and they took some, it's mentioned they took some really good pictures with the residents of England, the British, and they went back to India. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself went to receive them on the airplane. No, I think it was, I don't even think it was airplane, I think it was by ship. Went to go and receive them. And when they were received by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, then they told Bhaktisiddhanta, he asked them, how did the preaching go? And they said, it's not possible. Can you see how much heartbreak Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had to sustain? It's not possible. And here Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is mentioning, teaching them that Krishna consciousness is universal. It doesn't depend on this time, place, circumstance. It must be given at all times. So you can see that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur tried to inculcate that in his disciples. And it came out in Srila Prabhupada. So the point I'm trying to make is that if the service is there and it's not done, Krishna will arrange that a devotee will be there to do it. So we should never be proud thinking that this service can be done only by me and no one else can do it. Because even without you it's been performed. When you're long gone, back to Godhead, it will still be performed. Someone will always there to perform the Nitya Seva of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So we should not think of existing without relationship with His omnipotency. So we're always under the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We're always under the mercy. That we are given the service is the mercy of the Supreme Personality Godhead. That we're able to perform the service is the mercy of the Supreme Personality Godhead. And any result is the mercy of the Supreme Personality Godhead. So what credit do we really have? The only credit that we have is that we simply desire to serve the Lord. That's the only credit we have. Because there's something known as free will that the living entities have, and it's a choice between surrendering to Krishna and not surrendering to Krishna. That's it. You're not surrendering to Krishna and desiring to enjoy material nature, the result is this material body. The result is the material body. So Krishna is mentioning this point to Lord Brahma. And how to see Krishna's omnipotency in everything? Just like fire is within wood. If you have a look at wood, you can't see the fire unless it's lit. But the fire is dormant within the wood. That no matter which place you put in the wood, the fire will come out. Similarly, throughout all of creation, it's mentioned autumn, protam. That in this material world, just like a cloth has the cloth or the thread is weaved horizontally and vertically, and that's what sustains the cloth. That's the support or the shelter. In the same way, this whole universe is sustained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because if one thread of that cloth is not there, then the other thread does not have a shelter, and it will just simply fall apart. In the same way, Krishna is present everywhere, sustaining this universe through His potencies. And He personally comes to maintain the universe as the Paramatma, as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So in the same way fire is within wood, that anywhere you ignite, fire will come out. In the same way, throughout this whole creation, Krishna is present. There's no situation where Krishna is not present. It's mentioned the living entities are known as Sarvagata. Like during lockdown, we often have the idea that there are not many devotees here, just the temple devotees. But actually there are so many devotees here. The souls are Sarvagata. They're present everywhere. Once in the morning walk, Prabhupada's walking, and he sees in concrete, suddenly some plants are growing through the cracks. And Prabhupada points to his disciples and they say that there are no living entities in other planets. But just see, within a crack in the concrete, there's life growing. Amazing how Prabhupada's vision is, right? That if within a crack, a living entity is able to come out, what to speak of another universe, another planet? What to speak of another situation, another environment, and another planet? So if the living entities are like that, what to speak of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? They simply reflect some of the qualities of the Lord in a minute degree. So the Lord is also Sarvagata. But individuality is always maintained. So here Prabhupada talks about that. But then he talks about shape and quality. So the fire that comes out of the wood is of different qualities and shapes, depending on the firewood, right? Or when firewood is small, the flame will be in this size. The firewood is big, the flame will be in this side. But fire is fire. Warmth is warmth. So although we may have different types of bodies, we are all spirit soul. We are the sparks present within the Supreme Personality Godhead. As part and parcel of the Lord, we are the sparks. And the sparks have just simply fallen from the fire and covered by smoke. Or in other words, we have come from the spiritual world and we are just simply covered by material existence, by material nature. But spark is always spark. We are always the potency of the Supreme Personality Godhead, and we are always servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's one way you can see. Immediately when you see other living entities, you can understand that within this body there is a spark. And that spark is sustained by the Supreme Personality Godhead. Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that He is situated in all living entities' hearts. That Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hriddesha Arjuna Chishtati. And that He is the one directing their wanderings in material existence. Yantra Rudani Mayaya. So you can understand it's by the Lord's support that the living entities are continuing. So that's one way you can always remember Krishna's omnipotency. That when you're performing your devotional service, it's obvious, or it'll be very it'll be very necessary to get the help of another devotee. It'll be necessary to interact with other devotees. So you can always understand and see the Lord's omnipotency there. So Prabhupada talks about that. And finally Prabhupada talks about that this transcendental knowledge of seeing the Supreme Lord everywhere as the Paramatma in every living entity. He's in every body as the Paramatma. And also understanding how He pervades all of existence and how He was Goloka Eva Nivasati Akilatma Bhuta is existing in Goloka Vrindavan. By this transcendental knowledge alone, one can save one from the contamination of material illusion. So sometimes we wonder in Krishna consciousness, where's the taste? Sometimes we wonder in Krishna consciousness that suddenly somehow or other I ended up in some other path, some other consciousness, some other way. I was performing devotional service in such a way, with determination, with full faith, with vigor, and suddenly somehow or other I got sidetracked, and now my devotional service is not so strong. We wonder why it's like that. Why suddenly there's no taste in our chanting. Why suddenly the old vasanas or the old habits and desires are coming up and becoming stronger and stronger. This is material illusion that's coming up. This is the duty of Maya, her thankless task, to constantly test us. Once my spiritual master was mentioning, when you're chanting japa, actually he's quoting Prabhupada, when you're chanting japa, sometimes within the heart, some desire will come from many, many years ago. That suddenly you're chanting japa, and from many, many years ago, you may think of going to some particular place to enjoy in some particular way with some particular living entity. And you'll be thinking like, I was so over that. I'm chanting Hare Krishna, 10 years have gone. Why suddenly? So my Guru Maharaj mentions there, Prabhupada says that sometimes it's the Paramatma testing you directly. Do you want that or do you want me? Through the agency of Maya, Paramatma's testing. Do you want that or do you want me? So then my spiritual master mentions that don't fight the mind. Just simply bring the mind back to chanting Hare Krishna. Just simply back to hearing the holy name. Don't fight the mind. It's a losing battle. Because you fight the mind, you'll end up going back into it even more and more. It'll be a downward spiral. By the time you realize that all rounds are finished, 16 rounds, you don't know whether you've actually chanted or not. Fighting the mind. Better ignore the mind and just hear. The mind will drag you away, bring it back here, bring it back here. In the same way, cultivate knowledge. You forget that the living entity before you is a devotee of the Lord. You forget the Lord is present within them. Okay, always remember, bring the mind back, bring the mind back. And when you cultivate this knowledge, then you start acting on that knowledge. You'll start treating other living entities with respect. Amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. And then your chanting will then become more and more consistent and continuous. And in this way, where is the question of Maya? If you're always in contact with Krishna, smartavya satatam Vishnu, vismartavya na jatuchit. Always remembering Krishna and never forgetting Him. How can you be in Maya then? Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dhutavrataha. Namasyantascha mam bhakta nitya yukta upasate. That the pure devotees of the Lord are always chanting the holy name of the Lord constantly. And by doing that, Nitya Yukta Upasate, they're always in contact with the Lord. They'll go back to the Lord naturally at the end of this life. So Maya cannot come in contact. So therefore Prabhupada says, since the Lord's potency is distributed everywhere, a pure soul or devotee of the Lord can see everything in relationship with the Lord and therefore has no affection for the outer coverings. Maya loses her glare, her glamour. She loses her taste because you only see Krishna. You see Rasaraj. You see the original taste, Krishna. that pure spiritual conception makes him immune to all contamination and material association. Prabhupada says there are two things. There's a diet and there's the medicine. What is the diet? Krishna Prasad. And what is the medicine? Chanting Hare Krishna. If you just take these two things, you'll be freed from the affliction of material existence. The pure devotee never forgets the touch of the Lord in all circumstances. So it comes down to this one point. To always see the Lord's hand in everything. To always remember the Lord. To always bring the mind to remembering and coming in contact with the Lord again and again. Prabhupada, one morning walk, I think it was Mukunda Maharaj, he asked Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, how is it that the pure devotee sees Krishna everywhere? Is it that when they see the tree, they see Krishna in the tree, and then they see between every atom, they just see Krishna, Krishna, Krishna everywhere? And Prabhupada says, no, not like that. Just like you see my shoe, whose shoe is it? It's your shoe, Prabhupada. Yes, so just like how this is my shoe, in the same way, you see the whole material existence, this existence is Krishna's. By just thinking like that, you are Krishna conscious. You are remembering Krishna. Just like the mother, although the child is grown up and gone from home, sees the shoes of the child, she'll immediately remember the child out of affection. In the same way, the devotee sees whole material creation as a potency of the Lord and sees the Lord there present. And who is the best example of this? Prahlad Maharaj. That within the pillar he saw Nrsingadev. Because at that time when his father Hiranyakashipu was becoming more and more antagonistic, he asked him, where is your Supreme? Where is your Lord? Show him to me. And Prahlad Maharaj said, he's everywhere. What's the difficulty? He's everywhere. If your Lord is everywhere, is he in this pillar? And actually Nrsingadev was there behind the pillar. Why was he there? Out of extreme anxiety. He did not want Prahlad Maharaj to have any type of anxiety or fear. So he was there, Prahlad Maharaj, I'm here, don't worry, don't fear. I'm here to save you. And Nrsingadev positioned himself on that pillar, knowing that the rascal will try to, rascal Hiranyakashipu will break the pillar. And as soon as Hiranyakashipu broke the pillar, Lord Nrsingadev appeared. And there are two things to understand when Lord Nrsingadev appeared. One is that the sound he made was never heard before. The sound he made was never heard before. But before he appeared, sound was there. So Hiranyakashipu was able to perceive the Lord by the sound first, not by sight. So in the same way, by chanting Hare Krishna, we'll be able to perceive the Lord. Nama, Guna, Rupa, Lila. It'll come by hearing the holy name. And the second thing to understand there is that the Lord appeared from a pillar. So does that mean that the Lord is made of material nature? No, he's aloof from material nature. He's not affected. Although he appeared from the pillar, he's not of the quality of material nature. The pillar is not his mother or father. He always remains Aja. So the Lord is all-pervading in that sense, that he's always there, being the sustenance of material nature. And Prahlad Maharaj is the best example. And if you want to go back, when Narad Muni is glorifying his own disciple Prahlad Maharaj, he's telling Yudhishthira Maharaj, actually Prahlad Maharaj was so absorbed in Krishna that he did not know what eating and sleeping was. He just was so absorbed in Krishna that Krishna maintained his body. Krishna made sure he was eating, sleeping, everything, evacuating. All of these things were done in due course by Krishna's mercy. He just simply remembered Krishna.